Hey, how you doing? My name is Chanel, and in this video we're going to be learning how to do some sewing drills. I think it's very important as a beginner sewer that you first learn the basics and you know what you're doing, or at least you get in there, or at least you're trying. And this is very important because me myself, I don't like sloppy work. I don't like just thrown together work. Even though you make garments at home, it doesn't have to look like it's made at home. You understand? So doing these drills can be very helpful for the beginners and even intermediate sewers. Just practice. It's always good to practice sometimes. Even maybe you haven't sewn in a long time and you're a little rusty. This is good for you. Okay, so let's begin the video. I got a pen, black pen, or you could use a pencil. I have an 18-inch ruler, and I have some scrap muslin here. You can also use cotton or maybe an old sheet or old pillowcase that you don't use, and you can use that for the sewing drills. Okay, all right, so I have my muslin laid out already. We're gonna do a 6 by 6 inch square. So I'm gonna just mark using my ruler. I'm just gonna make little markings here. To let me know where to cut. And I'm gonna be doing this a couple of times because we're gonna be doing a couple of sewing drills. Okay, so with this first square, and you can press it out if you want to, if it's too wrinkly. So what I'm gonna do is mark 1 inch lines. Okay, so the stitch that I'm going to be using is the straight stitch. I always put it 2.5 is my staple stitch length for the straight stitch. The tension, I put it always to 5, contrasting thread so that I can see the work I've done. Okay, so here I have my square, and I'm just going to sew right on the lines that I've drawn in. I suggest that you go really slow and you take your time and just sew right on top of the lines that you've drawn in. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so I'm placing the fabric underneath the presser foot, and I'm putting my needle down. And I'm going to use both of my hands to stabilize the fabric as I sew. So you could just take your time, no rush, and just sew right on top of the drawn line. And as you sew, pay attention to the needle. You're not looking at the fabric, you're not looking at your hands. Just pay attention to the needle, because this is going to determine how straight your stitch is going to be. And when I get to the bottom, I just go all the way down, lift up my presser foot, and lift up the needle, and I just gently pull it out. And then I use the knife on the side of my machine to cut the threads. So this is how it's looking so far. So far so good. The stitching is right on top of the marking, and this is the back, so it looks good. So now I'm going to do another one, and I'm just picking up the pace, but this time I'm gonna backstitch, so you can also practice your backstitching and do a few stitches, then go back down, forward, and continue on, and backstitching again. And then again I pull it out and cut the threads, and see, this is how the back stitching looks. You can see it, and I'm going again. It doesn't have to be the very first day that you start doing these drills, but as you go on, you can start challenging yourself and sewing in between the lines. So I'm gonna do that for you. Okay, so I'm gonna sew in between the lines, and let's see how it comes out. Back stitch, wait, I'm gonna forward, then back. Okay. Back stitch, and this is how it looks. Document your progress on every square that you do. You can put the date, which I highly recommend, just to see how much you've grown over the course of months or weeks. Okay, so here I have another square here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna practice making corners, which is pivoting, and so I'm gonna show you that. So I'm gonna do 1/2 inch. Half an inch here. So you're just gonna draw a box, a square inside of a square. Okay, so this is what we're gonna be doing. And these are the pivotal points here, which is what we'll be practicing. And I made another square inside of that square, and it's the same thing, 1/2 inch all around. And you can also draw in another one if you want to. Okay, so it's gonna be the same thing as I did the last drill. I'm just gonna place the needle on top of the marking, and I'm gonna place my presser foot down. I'm gonna start sewing. You can go as slow as you want, as fast as you want. It's up to you. Okay, so once I hit the corner, sometimes I like to manually stitch instead of using the pedal, just to get an exact point at that corner, which is what I'm doing right now. And then what I'm gonna do is lift up my presser foot, and I'm not gonna keep sewing. I'm gonna lift up the presser foot first, and then turn the fabric around, and then put my presser foot back down, and then continue to sew. So it won't be a continual sewing around the corner. I'm gonna first stop and then turn the fabric and continue to sew to get a good sharp corner. So as you can see, I'm gonna do it again. And when I finish sewing the square, I backstitch. So you can also again practice backstitching. And this is how it looks. So you can see the bigger box that I've sewn. It looks good. I've sewn right on top of the markings. The corners look sharp. And again, I like to document my work. So you can do this drill again. So now we're gonna do a quick practice of sewing side seams. And I feel like this can be helpful for those who struggle or need help with this. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna pin. So what I'm gonna do first is pierce the needle right through both layers of fabric, as you can see, and then I'm gonna pierce both layers again, and this is how it looks. So I'm gonna do it again. Pierce the fabric through, and then pierce it again. And that's how it looks. So I'm going to continue to do that. You can put as many pins or as little pins as you want. It just depends on your confidence and how you feel you're going to do on the sewing machine. I also have this helpful tool here, which is a magnetic seam guide, and it can be very, very helpful to make straight stitches straight and not crooked. So right here is the 1/4 of an inch, and where I want my seams to be is a 1/2 inch, so that's where I'm going to place the magnetic seam guide. But as you can see, there's different measurements on your sewing machine, but I always use a 1/2 inch, so that's where I'm placing it. Taking out my first pin, I'm going to lay the fabric underneath the presser foot, and I'm gonna put it right underneath the needle, and the fabric is right next to the magnetic seam guide. You don't want to squish it in there, you just want to lay it right next to it, and rest the presser foot, and I'm going to backstitch and then go forward. So I'm going to keep my eye right where the seam guide is and the fabric, just to make sure I'm not going over. And at the same time looking at the needle. So I'm just keeping my eye on that side fabric next to the guide. And then I'm just gonna backstitch. And this is how it looks. And so I'm just checking to make sure that I've sewn a 1/2 inch using my ruler. And what you would normally do is open up the seams and press it out, which you can practice as well. And I use a tomato to hold my pins, or I use this magnetic holder, which quickly and easily picks up all my pins, whether on the machine or on the table. So this is quick and easy for me to do, and it's very helpful. It doesn't fall off or anything like that. So I'm gonna take the seam guide off, and I'm gonna create a seam without it using the 1/2 inch marking on the sewing plate of the machine. Oftentimes, some people like myself sew over the pins, which you're not supposed to do because it can potentially break your needle, your sewing needle, and it can damage your machine. But sometimes you just take a chance and sew over it, but it's not recommended. You just want to take out the pins as you go. Okay. So I'm going to backstitch. Okay, and this is how it looks without the seam guide. And again, you just want to check if you sewed the 1/2 inch or whichever seam allowance you decided on. Okay, so that's all for this video. I hope you learned something, and always remember that practice makes perfect. And even though you practice, you still might make mistakes, and even if you make mistakes, you just keep going no matter what. Don't be discouraged if you fail. Don't be discouraged if you make crooked lines. Don't be discouraged. Just keep trying. Just keep trying. That's all we can do, is keep trying. If you're really interested in sewing and fashion design, do whatever it takes. Or with any profession, do whatever it takes to be good, be great, be incredible at what you do. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.